Hey, I'm Buntle. I'm the ADHD consultant. Over the last couple of years, I've gotten so many questions about consulting, in particular for people who are neurodivergent. And to be honest, I don't really have time to answer all of them individually, but I always feel kind of bad. So this is my attempt to put some good karma into the world and give some of my advice. Obviously, this is based on my experiences and the experiences of my friends and colleagues in consulting. I started about a decade ago in consulting, so things were obviously very different in very good and helpful ways 10 years ago. A lot of things have improved subsequently, but to be fair, I'm still a consultant and some of these lessons still apply. So let's get into it. Got ADHD, consulting is perfect for you, or so they say. So why would consulting be a good idea? The pace. Consulting works much faster than corporate jobs usually do, or jobs in other kind of organizations, including charities, etc. The reason for this is that you're not operating at the speed of the client. As much as people like to say, you are trying to do things, taking people along on the journey or holding their hand, etc. There is so much work that goes into going at the speed of clients. Let me explain. So you spend quite a lot of time trying to think about how to reach outcomes in a specific amount of time. In a corporate setting, you can kind of keep on working on the same project or program for much longer because there's more people involved, there's more complexity, there's more politics, there's more what we call syndication or sensitization, whatever you want to call involving people in the process. In consulting, you have the same amount of that, but you have to do it in a confined timeline. Because you're expensive. You're much more expensive than the people who are working in the organization. As a result, they have to kind of get their money's worth. So 2-week project, 2-month project, going to be more likely than a 2-year project or a 4-year project. And even if your consulting company is on a 2-year project, for most management consultants, at least on the strategy side, they're not going to be on that project for the full 2 years. They may have stints in and out of it, but not the whole time. And a lot of the pace is going to be set not necessarily by the client, but by the partners. The partners on the consulting team, if you think about, I will always talk about McKinsey because that's the environment I know the best and have spent a large portion of my career at. McKinsey teams, for example, have some junior people on them who are business analysts straight out of university or associates who have a little bit more experience. They'll have an engagement manager who's kind of the project manager, but like project manager in a very intense way because they're producing content as well as managing the process. So they're not just kind of trying to make sure that you stay on track, on budget, on time. Then you might have a junior partner or an associate partner, and then you'll have the partners. Now, there is usually only one project to one partner, but partners are on multiple projects. And so for these engagements, there is an emphasis for them, at least, to give the team as much as they can in the shortest period of time, right? Because they have to get to other teams. And the idea of being a partner is really that you are supposed to be the person who knows shit about shit, right? You're supposed to be the person that people come to for answers. And so you have an incentive to go as fast as possible and to get the team to produce as many iterations, so redo the documents as many times as possible so that you can make them better, so that you have time to kind of invest in them, so that you are kept up to speed, so that when you have conversations with clients, they're better conversations because you're really informed as opposed to just like showing up. So all of that means that the pace is much faster. And to be honest, most organizations have really smart people in them. It doesn't really matter the size. Usually people are hired because they are smart. No one comes into their job wanting to do a bad job. And so if clients really wanted to get stuff done in a slow pace, they would just rely on their internal people. Their internal people probably could also do it fast. But the question of being able to do something which would take your internal team 3 months in 3 weeks or 3 days, and I've been on those 3-day kind of projects, that's when you want to call in some consultants. And that for an ADHD person is fantastic because the stakes are really high. It's really fast paced. It's really difficult to get bored. You can, but you have to try. The other important thing is consequences. So the way that the ADHD brain works is that everything is based on, is something exciting? Is it interesting? Is it new? Are there real consequences for not doing it? Right, is it urgent? Anything that doesn't fall into one of those categories basically is not important enough for your brain to want to do it. So you might still be able to complete that task, but if you think about how long it might take you if you have ADHD or if you suspect that you have ADHD to do things like wash the dishes, or do your tax return, or call the dentist to make an appointment. All of those things, while very important and things that you probably want to get done, it's very difficult to kind of force yourself to do it. And so having something that's new, interesting, consequential, important, urgent, like that, the configuration of all of those things is what's going to make something really exciting and easy for you to do. And consulting has plenty of consequences because unlike other jobs, your role is not just about making the client happy. It's also, to be fair, about making the partnership happy and making your leaders happy, because you're always functioning at two levels. Like internally, there is a level you need to reach, and then externally, there's a level you need to reach. And for a lot of consulting companies, what you internally have to clear in terms of a bar of being exceptional is much higher than clients necessarily expect you to be able to clear, at least as a junior consultant. And so there are real consequences, especially in firms that have up or out, which basically says you can be as wonderful and good as your job as you want to be, and that's so beautiful. However, if you are not good enough to be promoted, you're going to get fired. I say fired, it's a little bit, more nuanced than that, but essentially up or out means that if you don't get promoted, you should go. And so that creates a real sense of urgency and a real sense of consequences for the ADHD brain to go, yeah, absolutely, I'm going to work on these slides even though they're boring, because there's real consequences to me not doing that. Now, all the hyper focus you could ask for, it's a double-edged sword, and I think I'll go into that a little bit more when I talk about why consulting is probably not the best idea for ADHD people, which will probably be my next video. But it does allow you to really get deeply into a problem, to really engross yourself in that problem, and really have all the hyper focus you could ask for, because a lot of the time we are forced as ADHD people to go eat dinner, or to take a shower, or to stop working after a certain amount of time. Consulting pretty much lends itself to the kind of personality that goes, I want to work on this project for 8 hours, 9 hours, 10 hours at a time and not leave it. Obviously, if you have good partners, good leaders on that team, no one's going to ask you to do that. And hopefully people will respect the fact that your body needs rest, that you need rest, and the balance is more important than kind of going all out. But it will most likely, if you have ADHD, be a case of people telling you to take breaks rather than you having to take breaks because, there's not enough work, etc. to do. And this is the one thing that a partner once told me about McKinsey, and I think it applies to a lot of the top tier strategy consulting companies. McKinsey is a pie eating contest where the prize is winning more pie. And so the more work you do, it doesn't mean that you kind of finish for the day. You can just keep on doing work. You can keep making the answer better. You can keep doing problem solving. You can look at a different angle. You can talk to another expert. So it really is all the hyper focus you could ask for. And it is your responsibility to really be able to balance yourself out and make sure that you don't burn out doing that, which, not as easy as it sounds. Another important aspect which makes consulting fantastic for ADHD people is there's a deadline for everything. There is a deadline for what you need to have done by the end of the day and a clear set of objectives and tasks that you need to do. Similarly for the week, similarly for the month, similarly for the whole project. So it's always very clear when things are due. Those deadlines also are real deadlines as opposed to fake deadlines, because you need something in problem solving to have a conversation with the partners about, or you need to present this to the CEO, or you need to get the numbers from the CFO. Like, there is always a reason for doing that, so they're not artificial deadlines. And the thing which I particularly loved is even if I was on a project that I deeply disliked, it always had a deadline. It had a time when it would be over. I knew this is 3 more weeks, this is 3 more months, whatever it might be. But that really helped my brain to be able to do things, because it wasn't as though it was going to be this long, indefinite thing where I didn't know when I'd be able to escape. It was super clear when I'd be able to escape. And personally, that was fantastic for me. The other thing, which I don't know if I love it so much now because I'm now old, but frequent feedback is another fantastic way to learn very fast as a consultant. It's the reason why people succeed in this kind of apprenticeship model, is because they're getting feedback, as opposed to in a corporate where you're having a conversation with your manager maybe once a month, maybe twice a year about your performance, maybe once a year you have that kind of annual review. When I started off in consulting, those kind of review sessions, those feedback sessions were every 2 weeks. I think that pretty much is still the cadence that's followed in a lot of firms. And so that meant that every 2 weeks I would have to be prepared to talk about my feedback for the manager or the partner, whoever I was speaking to, but also be prepared to get their feedback. And that really gives you goals to work towards every 2 weeks, very short iterations, very clear things that you need to work on. The goal should always be not to get the same feedback twice, because if you've gotten it once, fine, you didn't know, but twice means that you're not really working on it, right? You're not working to fix it. And so really you're moving once a month, you are learning your skills, and there's a very clear progression. And that's very satisfying for the dopamine hits that you need in your brain to keep doing things, to keep enjoying things as a person with ADHD. So that feedback combined with the deadlines, combined with the consequences and the pace makes things super exciting for your brain. What's the so what of this? Of course, there must be a so what. Unfortunately, for roughly the same reasons, this is also a terrible job to have if you have ADHD. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in the next episode. But thank you for joining me. I appreciate it, and I hope you've enjoyed something. I'm the ADHD consultant. Goodbye.